5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's time to count down reality TV's most talked about moments with Amanda Bella. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bella Talks TV. This is Amanda Bella here, and we're trying something a little bit new today. We're going back in time and we're doing an audio-only podcast because, believe it or not, podcasts used to just be audio, and now we've all gotten so used to having the video accompaniment, and myself included. I was somebody who thought I can't even start a podcast if I'm not going to offer video, which is a little bit contradictory, I think, because the whole point is to just be audio. So I'm trying to kind of go and take a step back because I find myself wanting to podcast more often than I am, but feeling okay, I don't look cute or I haven't showered yet, or I need to do a blowout. Not that I look like a gorgeous model on all of my videos, but I definitely don't look like I do right now. I just rolled out of bed and I'm you know what? I have some things to say today, but I really don't feel like getting ready to do a podcast. So I wrote my little notes and I'm just here in my PJs, and hopefully you guys will enjoy this episode. So today we're going to be seeing the premiere of the new season of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And, this has not always been my favorite franchise, being honest. I've always been more of a OC girly. I don't know. I'm weird with the franchises that I like. I think Salt Lake City, OC, Miami, those are probably 3 of my top faves. Even the people that gag over OG Roni, even when that was airing, I didn't appreciate it truly as much. I didn't really start loving Luann, Dorinda, these characters as much as I do now until they were off our screen. Isn't that kind of funny how a lot of this works? A lot of these housewives that are maybe problematic, or I guess what we like to say, old school, maybe, in their ways of thought, they're just not, not modern women as much. So maybe that's why they haven't been hired to represent. Because remember, when Andy produces these shows and Bravo puts these shows together, they are putting a cast together of certain cast types. They're trying to get a collective representation of that area, show some diversity, show some different, kinds of people that live in that area. And it's all a little bit interesting to kind of dissect. So everybody has different, things that they look for in the franchises that they like to watch, in the types of housewives that they really enjoy, and the general tone of the shows that they're looking for. I think people that were really into OG Roni were, maybe the types of people that like to think, okay, high society women are really not great people in the end. Or there's kind of these underlying tones that kind of try to show us different shades of these characters. And we know every housewife that gets hired thinks they're going to come on right. They've got their plan. I got my husband, I got my kids, I got my perfect little job. No one's going to say anything bad about me. I'm going to just come in and be no drama. I think everybody kind of enters into this arena thinking I'm going to maybe be different, or they're not going to come for me, or I don't have any skeletons in my closet, or they'll never find that out. I think that there's just this delusion that comes in about being a housewife that you kind of have to have. So kind of the makings of a good housewife, what makes me be oh, I like that housewife or not. And I think one really good thing about a housewife is somebody who is unaware of the cameras, or does have that kind of delulu tone about them. So let's say any type of housewife that we've all been sitting there where it's so obvious, where we're okay, we know you don't have all of that money. We know that your husband is cheating. We know that, like all of these kind of things where we're like sitting on our couch being like, how do they not get this? How do they not see it? Like you kind of have to have that relationship. Like that is a magical emotion that Bravo, reality TV, these producers have been able to get us to feel, right? This parasocial feeling like we know these people better than they do, or like we know how they should be living. That's kind of like what engages us to even care about these people in the first place, right? We start to get these like parasocial relationships with them. So I think being like a little bit of that, like having that delusional sensibility is got to be part of what makes me. Now, if someone comes in and they're too aware of the cameras, let's, just talk about what's going on Roni really fast. Over on Roni, these women that have been cast are too aware of the housewives formula and they're too aware of the cameras. So they're trying to manipulate the show, self-produce, and also create these fake storylines and like fake drama, pranks, all kinds of things. Like that is a great example. Like they're also, I think it's like an age thing. Like when we talk about wanting our housewives to be like over the age of 40, over the age of 50, I mean, even over the ones that are over 60 are some of our best housewives. So I think like the girls are just like too young and too normal, pretty much. They're too aware of how society works now to think like that. And they're all kind of influencers. And as we know about influencers, right? Influencing is all about creating a persona online that tailors to your customers because you want them to be buying your product. So I think, unfortunately, with Roni, everybody is concerned about selling the product to the influencer and they're not just being themselves. So I think that there's, a bunch of just problems with that. Now, the thing with Beverly Hills that makes it so interesting and that should also work on places like Roni is that they already are successful. Like these aren't struggling reality TV stars who need to create drama for storyline because they need a job and they're like, it makes me think of like Vanderpump Rules a little bit. Like remember back when they were all really broke and like they were desperate to stay on TV. Like they were willing to expose each other's skeletons, throw each other under the bus, reveal things that have happened because they knew that their livelihood really did depend on it. Like they had to be like that. Where we get these Roni women and stuff, it's like, they don't really need to be spilling tea like that on each other because they're going to still all be rich, all be successful, and all have a life outside of Housewives, with or without the show. So there's just a couple things to kind of like contemplate when what works and what doesn't work with a franchise. Now with Beverly Hills, again, that makes this a very special conversation because these women, again, all successful, mansions, cars, businesses, international lifestyles. Like these are the real deal. But why do they want to be on the show? So that comes to another point of what makes a good housewife is genuinely entertaining. A lot of these women want to be on a show because they have main character energy and they're like, wow, my life is crazy and cool. I think other people would like to see the things that I'm doing. And again, that kind of ties into the first point I was making about being like a little bit delusional, like, okay, thinking that you're interesting enough to have a TV show, but actually that's the thing about Real Housewives. These people are interesting enough to have their own TV shows. Now it is, one moment.
Looks fine.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too. Oh, yes. Yeah. I have a chicken. You have a hungry belly? You have a hungry belly? A chicken, Pete? Mommy loves you. I'm sorry I yelled. Hey, sorry about that. I actually had a balcony inspection today, so they had to come and do my balcony. Okay, so just talking back to what makes a good housewife. So they have to be a little bit delusional. They have to be interesting and also know that they're interesting and come to play and come ready to share the things about them that are interesting that we want to hear about. So if you're going to come on the show and you're going to be somebody, let's say like Rebecca Minkoff, who tons of stuff to offer, very interesting life, successful, Scientology, all of these things. But then you're going to come on and just talk about pajamas or like whatever she's talking about. It's not going to work. You can't just be interesting off camera and then come on camera and not share things with us because that is the point. So you have to be main character energy, willing to show. You can't be above the show. You can't threaten to quit the show. You can't be a victim of the show. Like, you have to realize when you sign up, that is what you signed up for. You came on to be a real housewife, to show us what it's like, to show us everything, and to be open and honest. Like, that has truly been from the beginning. And I think it was really Lisa Rinna and Kyle Richards. I think them through the years of their little frenemy-ship, of them always talking about being open and honest. And Kyle was the biggest proponent too of always being like, oh, open and honest, open and honest. And those are the ones that are usually hiding the most. So that's what makes Housewives so compelling, because you have to always be dissecting everybody to figure out like what the truth is. So that's another good making of another, good housewife. I would say one of the other makings, I wouldn't really rank these things in order of importance, but another thing that is important for our housewives is to either be married or have an ex that has drama or is interesting, or be divorced and dating somebody new that's going to be on the show. Or, there's got to be some kind of you cannot just be single. Like, one of my biggest issues that I have with Giselle is that she won't date on the show. She won't talk about her ex on the show. She won't talk about what it was like being married. Like, she doesn't talk about it. Like, that's one of the reasons why you got hired. You didn't get hired just because you got the face card. There's enough pretty people out there. Like, there's this thing about housewives where they think, okay, I'm going to come on and I'm not talking about anything to do with me. I'm just going to bone collect other people's drama. And that's how I'll stay relevant, and I'll be in the shots, and I'll be in the storylines, and I'll be part of the show. Like, I'll be such an integral part of the drama because I'm the one bringing everything to camera, but we're never going to talk about me. I cannot stand that. Like, you have to be willing to play both sides. If you are truly perfect and you have nothing to bring to the show, then you should not be on the show. We can't have people that are on the show that only give and never, or only take and never give, So, okay. So just a couple things of how I rank whether or not I enjoy a housewife. Now there's other things that come in, just charisma, that natural charisma. I would say anybody who's been hired to be a housewife has probably been approved on the Riz scale. Like, you got to have something about you that is, camera interesting. So with all that being said, I decided to put together a little list of my top 5 Real Housewives of Beverly Hills throughout time. Some of them are present, some of them are past. And I just want to go through kind of how they were involved on the show and why I consider them to kind of be the blueprint for these other Housewives of Beverly Hills. Because some of them are controversial, of course, and some of them are probably your least favorite houses of all time, but some of them are maybe your favorites too. And maybe you'll feel like, okay, I'm not crazy for liking this person for 8 seasons. They've been on screen. So, okay, let's just kind of run through too. I found this very interesting as I was doing a little bit of research to this episode, where I've talked about the Wikipedia before, the Wikipedia of Housewives. And how if you go on Wikipedia, typically any franchise, any housewife, any of the, Bravo related things, you can usually get a pretty good amount of information just from Real Housewives Wikipedia, because there's a huge chart on here that will show you each season who was on the cast and if they were considered a guest, a friend of, or a main cast member. So it does help you break it down to kind of get back, because even going through some of the history of this show, I was like, oh, I thought that she was a friend. Oh, I thought that she was a housewife. So, okay, so let's just kind of go through the history of the show a little bit, because I was also confused. So in 2010, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills premiered. And so 2010, I was in college in Michigan. It was my senior year. I was living with my boyfriend at the time. We were getting ready to graduate in 2011 and move to Chicago. And so that was kind of just what was going on in my life at the time. I was 23 or 22, going on 23. And I was loving life. I was working at the mall. I worked at Wet Seal, and I was a manager at the Wet Seal in my college town mall for a few years. I eventually ended up transferring to the Chicago Wet Seal and managing that location until basically it went out of business. So RIP Wet Seal. But that's just kind of like giving you an idea of like the snapshot of time that we were in. 2010, Obama was president. He was about to go into his second term. And that was the life that we were living in. So I was still living in Michigan. And I was still really aspiring. Like, remember, this is a girl who I hadn't even really been to Chicago yet. Like, I had never been out of Michigan. So I'm seeing these women on TV, and I didn't start with Beverly Hills. I started with OC season 1, episode 1. So that's why I'm like such a Victoria Gunvalson stan to this day. I mean, no, do not get me wrong. Like, and we've talked about what makes a good housewife and a bad housewife. Like, somewhere in there, we need to talk about how being a good person doesn't necessarily equate to you being a good housewife. Like, yes, I am totally the morality police, and I will call out, like, if it comes to racism, body shaming, disability shaming, like, we have to draw the line somewhere. None of these people that we're going to talk about, I think, have been racist or, but they're still questionably not like great people. So we'll discuss and we'll break it down. But okay, 2010, we're starting off with the original cast. So the original cast of Beverly Hills was Kyle Richards, the self-proclaimed Queen of Beverly Hills, born and raised, this is her town baby, Kyle Richards. Then we have Lisa Vanderpump, the introduction to Lisa Vanderpump to the world. Because remember, we didn't have Vanderpump Rules till afterwards. So some people really only knew Lisa from Vanderpump Rules, but for the Beverly Hills fans, we knew her from there. And for the LA people, which is even more interesting, is to know Lisa before she was even on TV as like a local restaurateur. So that's kind of interesting. Then we have Kim Richards, sister to Kyle Richards. So remember, Kim and Kyle were both cast as main cast members on the original series, like as sisters. They, Kim wasn't on as Kyle's sister. She was on as Kim. So that's pretty cool and interesting too. I mean, just to go on and see. Wow, Kim was a perfect example of somebody who came onto this show, like with us thinking like, wow, it'll be so cool just to see like what Kim is like this child star. And skeleton. She had a whole haunted house in her past. So, and things that came up for her. Another person. Wow. Beverly Hills, strong first season. Taylor Armstrong. So another person. This is a perfect example of a real housewife. Taylor was not famous. Taylor was not even, I don't even think really, maybe she was considered socialite-ish around Beverly Hills. But she really was kind of an introduction to somebody who was not famous or anything like that. She was just truly a housewife to someone else, to a man who, a normal housewife in Beverly Hills. So I like this mixture that we get in Beverly Hills of people that are famous of their own right and kind of grown up in the spotlight and are kind of really like famous versus people that we've never heard of that are going to end up finding fame through ROBH. So then we have Adrienne Maloof, who she's again an example of kind of a Lisa Vanderpump where she wasn't famous necessarily, but she came from an affluent, well-known family. The Maloofs, who, as you guys know from watching the show, have their own huge empire that they've built. So with everything from, media companies to producing movies to owning casinos, they're a huge family. So the Maloofs, and then obviously she was married at the time in season 1 to botched Dr. Paul Nassif, which they've since split, and we'll kind of go through that. Then we have Camille Grammer, who again, famous already when she came on the show, was already known as being married to Kelsey Grammer from Frasier. So she already had her fame. She came onto the show really thinking that she was just going to show off, and she got humbled very quickly. Very quickly. We're talking about my 5 favorite housewives of Beverly Hills today, but if I was doing my 5 least favorite, Camille would be on the list. I hate Camille as a person and as a housewife. So that's where you have to sometimes if I hate them as a person, but I love them as a housewife, I'm like, okay, I'm willing to play devil's advocate. I hate her as a person off screen, and I hate her as all the stuff that she does on screen too. So just trash human to me. Cannot stand Camille. Did you guys see recently that she just posted a thing that was like, I think that the Real Housewives franchise has become too woke now? Ugh. Remember Brett Kavanaugh when she was like, crying over him? Sometimes I've just rewatched season 9 when I was in Italy on my honeymoon because I didn't have Peacock over there, and I was just watching the only season at the time that I could find on Netflix, which was season 9 of Beverly Hills. And that was the season, with the Brett Kavanaugh stuff. It was just, ugh, I hate her. Okay, then that was the original 6, right, from season 1. I want to make sure that did actually include Camille. Yeah, she was in season 1. Okay, so those were the original 6. Now, everybody returned for season 2, and then we added in new people. But that was season 1 and the original ones. So I really like remember watching it. Like, it wasn't the first season wasn't necessarily like filled with a bunch of crazy drama, except for what happened with Kim and Kyle. That was the big Kim and Kyle season. The screaming in the limo, calling her an alcoholic, the "you stole my house, you fucking bitch," like all of that came from season 1. And then season 1 also showed a lot of the Camille and Kelsey Grammer drama. And then we had the introduction to LVP just in general. And she was a big part of the first season. So that was really what season 1 was looking like. It was drama because of the Richards sisters, but really it was just an introduction to these affluent women. And then when everything broke with Camille, that was huge. Camille, remember, she was on, I think, like, remember when the tabloids, like, I totally used to live for this time when Us Weekly and In Touch and stuff used to do like the Housewives covers with the exclusive stories because they didn't have social media back then, which is so crazy. So we used to have to go online or go not even online into these magazines and read these stories. So this was back when they would post all of these stories about Camille being the most hated housewife. And now remember, Beverly Hills is the 6th franchise. So there's been 5 franchises of Real Housewives already out there in seasons and whatever. And she was voted the most hated out of everybody that had been premiered so far, over Victoria, over Nene and Kenya, like over all these people. So really wild, really wild. So that was just kind of like what season 1 looked like. Now, season 2, we got the introduction to Dana Wilkie, 25,000. She came in, and we also met Brandi Glanville. So that's when things kind of started to take a turn for messy versus just, divorce and rich people drama. It kind of got into like the real life stuff because Camille came on really hot season 2. And she came in pretty much with a vengeance to vindicate herself by trying to prove that like all the things that she says and does is true, right? Like, this is a Teresa tactic. Like, if something is true, like say Evan cheats on Jackie, it doesn't matter that it's hurtful to say it because it's the truth. And so Camille comes from this school of thought too, of like, I don't care if this is a shitty thing to say. I don't care if this like hurts you. It's the truth. So therefore I'm right. And she knew that Taylor was, trigger warning, being domestically abused by Russell. And Camille was convinced that there was proof of this. Taylor used to do the Shannon Bedore a lot, where she would drink and call, so drunk dial all of her friends and kind of tell them what was going on. And then when they would try to bring it up to them or bring it up on camera, it would be like very hush hush or no, no, no. And I think Camille, wanting to vindicate herself as the most hated person, she kind of tried to spin this in a way that like Taylor is a bad person because she is hiding things, or she's a bad housewife, or, I mean, obviously this backfired because in her pursuit to expose Taylor and absolve herself, she really became even more hated and was really shown for being even more vile. And what we came to learn was that season 2 actually had to be re-edited because at the end of season 2, before it aired, but after it had been filmed, Taylor's husband, Russell Armstrong, committed suicide. So he was aware of the fact that all of these allegations, they were talking about the abuse and that it was going to come out when the show aired. So he took his life before the show aired. So there was just a lot of editing and things that had to go on. Taylor's not on my list, but she is a very important housewife. I think overall, like maybe when I make a list one day of all of the franchise and their importance and just like the stories and the impact of some of the housewives that have been shared, Taylor will have to be on that list because her even though she wasn't necessarily wanting to bring it up on camera, and Camille was really the one that like brought it up and exposed him and kind of like, you know, of course, I'm sure Camille would love to say like she saved her and like got her out of that marriage because of her actions, which we know is really fucked up. But I think that, you know, there's some truth to the fact that when these things are filmed and when these family secrets and when these skeletons do come out, the show airing and the impact of that, it is undeniable. So, I mean, we've lost people's lives. People have gone to prison, like a la Jen Shah. I mean, things have happened on these shows. So season 2 was really a lot about the Taylor and the Russell of it all. Dana coming in. Now, Dana, again, was only a guest. She was never even a friend of. So she came on as a guest, and she is still somebody who's Teddy Joing her way through Housewives world with the podcast and staying relevant. So we're still talking about her, which is crazy. I mean, season 2 was in 2011. So it's just like we're still talking about her 12, 13 years later, which is 14 years later. Wild. Okay, and then obviously Brandi. Like when Brandi came into the mix too, Brandi brought another new type of housewife in because she brought in the unapologetically drunk divorcee who is, you know, we've had a few of them now. Dorinda, you know, is another one that comes to mind. Like we have had a couple of these women that are like pretty much like, yep, which I think Shannon should have gone this route. But unfortunately, Shannon victimized herself too much to be able to like have ownness over her own narrative. But if she would have taken the route of two, like, yeah, I'm drinking Tamra, I'm divorced, I'm going through a huge breakup with like like she should have just owned it versus then trying to deny it and all this stuff, and be like, yeah, I'm going through it, like I am using it as a crutch, and then maybe like at least you can then still be able to like, I don't know, have some stuff over it. Because Brandi has never quit drinking. Brandi has never claimed to not have an alcohol problem. Brandi really just lives in this truth of like pretty much like, you're not going to shame me because I know that I have a problem and I'm basically choosing to live like this, which is very interesting. It's a mind fuck. So we have, you know, the introduction to Brandi. Then we come into season 3. And that's when we get Yolanda. Yolanda is truly, for me, she's number 5 on my number 5 most appreciated housewives on Beverly Hills. So season 3, we get Yolanda. And you're probably wondering, like, how the hell does Yolanda end up on your top 5 housewives list? So I'm going to explain why I love her. Now, I was somebody who, I mean, I guess I was somewhat aware of Gigi and Bella before they came on to the show. But to be honest, like I actually wasn't really like, I maybe just knew the names. Like I can't really remember in 2000, whatever year this was, that she came on. I'm trying to look it up now, but okay, let me go back to the last page. Hold on here. Okay, so she came on in 2012. So in 2012, then I'm living in Chicago. And like I said, I'm still kind of in the same phase of life, but I think Gigi and Bella were too young for me to know back then. Like this is still when like Kim Kardashian was like the biggest name ever. So I think it's safe to say for me to, you know, assume that I didn't know who Gigi and Bella were until Yolanda. So she, as a housewife, introduced me to the daughters. So that's an interesting concept, right? Like now we know that they have created their own careers and personalities and like grown into adults. But at the time, they were just Yolanda's kids on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So it's just, yeah, really interesting. Okay, so it's 2012. We meet Yolanda. Now let's talk about Yolanda a little bit here because, you know, she's from, you know, she's Dutch and she takes us to where she grew up in the show, which is really great, in Amsterdam. And it's a very, you know, the Amsterdam trip is a very famous Beverly Hills. Maybe I should have done a countdown of like my top 5 Beverly Hills trips, but I feel like that's already been done. And I really like to try to explain to you guys like who I like and why I like them so that you can just get to know me better too. And, you know, it says a lot like who our favorite housewives are. So she was born, it says, in a Christian background, but when she was 7 years old, her father died in a car accident, which left her mom to raise her and her brother Leo. And I think that this explains a lot already as a mother, right? She's very involved with Gigi and Bella and Anwar. She's really a self-proclaimed almond mom. I'm not sure if almond mom was started because of Yolanda. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did almond mom start because of Yolanda, or did Yolanda start almond mom? I'm not sure, because she was the one that when Bella called her, or when Gigi said that she was feeling weak and called her, she said, "Oh, just eat an almond. Just chew on an almond. You'll feel better." Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have the most amazing now, I said, going back to one of my favorite things that I think makes a great housewife is their relationship to either their current husband or their ex-husband. So we have the introduction to Mohammed Hadid, who is this real estate developer who is known for these extravagant Beverly Hills compounds. And it's just really crazy to think that Mohammed is the father, again, to these children, because you just really associate Yolanda with these kids. But to know that Mohammed, who is also a huge personality and really known for, I think, being like a polarizing character around Beverly Hills, and also has his own drama, it's just a really, the dynamic between Mohammed, Yolanda, the kids, it's very, it's interesting. Okay, so it says, I want to see when they got married, because it says after she was modeling, obviously, throughout Europe. She was modeling in Paris, Milan, Sydney, going all over the place. And she modeled for 15 years before she decided she wanted to start a family. That's when she moved to LA and met Mohammed. So she met Mohammed in LA. So that is interesting, actually. I wasn't sure if she had known him from anywhere, but she married him in 1994, and they were married for 16 years, and they had 3 children, as we know, Gigi, Bella, and Anwar. So they had the children, and they get divorced then in 2010. Okay, yes. So, 2000, I was right. So 1994 to 2000, they had their 3 kids, Gigi, which Gigi's real name is Jelena. So Jelena, and she was born 1995. Then we have Isabella, Bella, born 1996. And then we have Anwar, born 1999. So that was when they got divorced in 2000. And it was actually till 2011 where she became engaged to David Foster. So then that brings us pretty much current to her coming onto the show. So she got engaged to David Foster the year before she started the show. So that is interesting that she was actually single for all of those years. That is crazy. Wow. So for basically a decade, she was just like a single mom. I do find that pretty interesting, actually. I wonder if there's a reason why she did just focus on the kids, or why she didn't. But in 2015, Hadid announced that she and David Foster were going to divorce. So they were married for about 5 years. That's very interesting. Okay, so we're kind of like learning this all together here, which is really insane. So Gigi goes on to have a baby. So, we're not going to go through like the whole history, but she has the kids. And Yolanda was only on here until, I think, let's see here, 2016. Okay, so she goes through the divorce. Yes, I'm trying to remember. She really does go through the divorce and like everything. That's when she gets really sick with Lyme. Gigi and Bella moved to New York. Oh my God, remember when Bella got the DUI or whatever happened, and they had like the bloody tampon in her car, and oh my God, Yolanda was on TV being like, I did not raise a daughter to be like a disgusting, dirty hamster. Oh my gosh. That is such a good, like, this is why Yolanda is one of my favorite Real Housewives. She is hyper aware of the cameras, but also is that like, we're getting to the meat here. You can, the best of housewife knows the camera is there and is convinced they're doing the right thing on camera, but is actually doing the wrong thing. So by embarrassing a child or, doing something where they think like they're doing the right thing on camera, that backfire The idea of something like backfiring on camera, that's what makes a good housewife. It's always like this lightning in a bottle thing you're trying to explain. So, okay, so yeah, she gets divorced from David Foster. And then in 2020, she announced that she was in a new relationship with the CEO of a construction development company, this guy, Joey. They've been engaged. She's not remarried yet. But one of the biggest dramas that we didn't get to see was in 2021, Gigi's partner, which remember Gigi, never married or stayed with Zayn Malik, but they had a baby together. And there was a huge fight that happened where apparently Zayn Malik called Yolanda a Dutch slut. And there were like rumors that there were going to be charges pressed against them. But no, I guess that Zayn did have to do probation. But there was like never anything serious that ever happened. But there's just been fight and drama. And so again, when we count down our Real Housewives and our favorite ones, it's not just necessarily like what they did on camera. Like everything from Yolanda's fridge to the lemon trees to the family to the iconic relationship with David Foster to the just like mother energy she brought to the show, even when it came to putting the other women in their place. I mean, remember even when she was like the dream team, like she just, there's something about her where she's so wrong. It's right. And I have a feeling like her personal beliefs, and she probably is very problematic, but she just is really, really interesting. And it, like I said, as we're getting down to like what makes a good housewife, being interesting is the one of them. And I think even recently she did this architectural digest, and they did a tour of her and this new guy that she's with, this Joey guy's house. And I guess that he's sober and she doesn't drink either anymore. I'm not sure if she even drank too much really on camera, or if she was drinking during the show, I think because of the lime and stuff. But she has a honey bar and like all these like amazing different kinds of honey, like 100 different kinds of honey, and like a bar of honey at her house. Like these are the things that make me love her as a person, love her as a housewife. I just think that she's so over the top and like extravagant and just like that goals kind of aesthetically anyway. So yeah, she's number 5 on my most favorite Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Let's move on a little bit here. And we're going to kind of go back into our timeline of, okay, that was season 3. We met Yolanda. And then season 4 was when we still had Kyle. We still had Kim, Brandy. Camille was still kind of around. Taylor, like everybody, like that's interesting about this cast is like a lot of the women stayed on. But season 4, they started to switch it up a little bit because that's when we got Joyce and Carlton. So Joyce, if you guys can remember, she was like the Puerto Rican beauty queen that was married to this like Austrian guy. And they were also really intertwined with the Vanderpump Rules, because in season 3 was when they started to do those crossovers between Vanderpump Rules, and that's when Vanderpump Rules started. So there would be scenes sometimes where Lisa would have the ladies that come to serve her stuff, and there would be crossovers. And there was this one scene that happened at SUR with Joyce and the fight with, and I think like Stassi and Jax, and everybody was there. So it's just kind of funny to go back and like look into that, and Sheena and all these people. So that was when we started getting the crossovers. And then season 4, okay, yes, was Carlton and Joyce. And that's when they joined. And we still had, pretty much the same. And they were both just on for one season. So I think because Taylor left the show, and then we didn't really have Kim as much. Like there were certain things that were going on like between season 3 and season 4 that pretty much they had to kind of start to bring in some new housewives. Now they tried to do the Carlton thing, and that was I think that season was really bad. That was when it was just all about fighting about like whether or not Carlton was a witch, and Joyce and her husband got sick supposedly that night after the dinner party at SUR or whatever. That was like when the curse was put on from Carlton. It was just like a really silly season of Housewives. Not like the worst TV ever, but it just wasn't that great. Now, season 5 is when we get the introduction of Lisa Rinna and Eileen Davidson. And this is when they go to Amsterdam. And this is the season that Brandy and Kim were both basically fired after. Now, remember, we never fire our housewives. We just pause them. We just pause them until we want to bring them back. So that was pretty much like when that all ended, like the huge Amsterdam fight between Lisa and Kim, and then Kyle kind of choosing Lisa's side and Brandy being on Kim's side because I think Brandy was enabling Kim a little bit. I mean, it was a really, really crazy season. I mean, there were a couple of, things that happened. I think you guys know, like, we're not really doing like a recap of all of the seasons here, but I wanted just to bring up kind of just the timeline of when we were like meeting some of these people. But let's talk about actually my number 4 most loved housewife. And I think just my number 4 most intrigued housewife. Again, this is like a funny list to put together, but we're going to talk about Brandi Glanville. She's going to be my number 4 integral most part of this show. So let's talk about Brandi. Now, Brandi came onto the show again in season 2. We met her. So there was one season of Housewives before her. And then season 2, she came on and she really bonded with LVP and kind of became LVP's little like sidekick. And she was really known to be the one that was like going to say it how it is, no filter, was going to tell the women to shut the fuck up, was going to say, you're being a bitch. And in Beverly Hills, you don't speak like that. Like, you don't talk like that. So she really shook things up. She brought like a really, like, they didn't like that she came in and she like declassed the show. That was a big deal for them because remember, they're in that dream team phase. Like, they want to keep things really like, the dream team was the original Fox Force 5. Like, there was just this idea that, okay, if we have these off-screen alliances to not bring things up that are really going on, say foreclosures, say robberies, say frauds, cheatings, all of these things. One big thing I'm thinking of is like the fact that Mauricio basically cheated on Kyle the entire time. And because Kyle was the queen of the show, nobody would bring up the rumors because they would be afraid that they were going to get kicked off the show and lose their job. I mean, these are the kinds of things that were going on. So Brandi was really big to this disruption because she didn't care and she didn't want to keep up the appearances of like everything in Beverly Hills being perfect. She wanted to really expose the idea that in Beverly Hills, people have more secrets than ever, and I'm here to show you. So that's why she has to end up on this list somewhere. Now, she has a couple very influential relationships. Again, the LVP relationship, because they were so polar opposite. Here's Lisa, this hugely successful, rich boss lady, has it all together. I think the accent was always really like posh, right? Like, she just brought this layer of luxury to the show. And then Brandi was the antithesis of that. She was a single mom. She barely had it together. She was drunk all the time. Her little boys were peeing in the pool party. They, like, she was just a mess, and she was just known for that. So for LVP to be the one in the group to befriend her and show that like there was no classism, I loved that. I really loved that because I hate nothing more than the trope of like the we're up here and you're down here and like we don't. I hate that. I really like to have the idea, in my head at least, that even the rich are stars. They're just like us. So I think that I really liked the idea that like this was being broken down and that Brandi was the one to bring it to us and that Brandi was being celebrated for it, not being, she was definitely being ostracized from the group. Like, they were doing everything they could to turn us against Brandi, but we couldn't because she had LVP. She had LVP there that was basically like, not standing for it and not doubling down and backing her up on everything that she was saying and doing, but she was allowing it. And she was forgiving her for when she would smack her in the face and forgiving her, for when she would be naughty. So there was just this dynamic that I think we don't get on a lot of the other franchises because we get more of these equals. The ladies are all equal, but And Beverly Hills, there's definitely a class system there. And I really, really enjoyed what Brandi brought to the show. So beyond her and LVP, we obviously have all of the Kim stuff. Kim also, I think, going through probably, obviously, the hardest time in her life. Now, we talked about whether or not Brandi was actually enabling her or if she was, being an ally for her, because I'm not sure if and when they were using any substances together, if that was the big part of their relationship, or if they just had an understanding of like, hey, we're both like the addicts on the group here, so let's have each other's backs. But I mean, still to this day, Kim is struggling in and out of these facilities. So obviously it wasn't Brandi's fault, because I don't think Brandi's in her life anymore and she's still struggling. So but I just thought that the Brandi of it all was interesting with Kim and their relationship. Brandi was really more kind of like the sister figure to her when Kim was not talking to her for a lot of those seasons. And I just think Brandi brought like, that's the thing that's so polarizing about her, is that she is very sweet and has that heart of gold in her that I think actually has the ability to love somebody else and like have empathy. So I don't know. I like Brandi. Now, another reason why Brandi gets to be on this list is because of the Sheena of it all. Now, beyond being a great Housewives of Beverly Hills, she gave us Vanderpump Rules. I do believe that without the affair of, without the even caring that Brandi had of Sheena existing, of even the idea that Brandi would be like, I don't want to go to your restaurant, Lisa, because one of your servers had an affair with my ex. That brought us into a whole new world of reality TV that I think we have to have something for Brandi to think. Because if Brandi would have been like, oh, I don't care, or she would have even like befriended Sheena, or like, I don't know, if there just wouldn't have been any friction there wouldn't have been a show to make. So the fact that she actually like kind of gave the keys to the castle for that one and was like, yeah, let me open up my stuff so that you guys can use this as storyline, then I just think she gets to be on the list. So okay, so yeah, number 4, Brandi. So far, Yolanda and Brandi, 2 very influential housewives of Beverly Hills, and that I like on and off camera, which is a big part of this list. So we're in like season 5. We're introduced to Lisa. We're introduced to Eileen. We have this huge blow up in Amsterdam. We come back season 6, and we are now joined by 2 more new housewives, Erika and Catherine Edwards, which a lot of people don't remember, the one that was married to OJ. So let's backtrack a little bit here, because I want to talk about my number 3 before we go into this season, which is LVP. Now, I think a lot of you guys probably thought Lisa Vanderpump was going to be my number 1, but I cannot make her my number 1 most influential and favorite Beverly Hills housewife, because she quit the show. She quit the show in season 9. So we're only in season 6 here. We're still, getting a lot of LVP. We've had her again since season 1. We got basically 8.5 seasons of her. So I think that she's allowed to still, she did the time. She proved that she was there. She gave us Housewives for 8.5 seasons before she eventually, I think, was her own worst enemy and quit. She got a little too self-produced. She pulled a little too many errands from Roni. So she got lost in the sauce. But LVP, I mean, how can you not discuss LVP on a list of these Beverly Hills housewives? She, to me, is Beverly Hills housewives. But let's kind of talk about a little bit more about her. So we know Lisa's from England. Her and Ken Todd have owned restaurants, bars, nightclubs since the beginning of time, basically. And one interesting thing that I do see on here on her Wikipedia is that it has Sir, Villa Blanca, Tom Tom, and then it also mentions Lisa Vanderpump's Stone Baked Pizzeria. Is this like a new place, or is this an old place that used to exist that closed? I need to know. So Lisa, our little Lisa, she was in West London. She was a student. She was actually in a couple of films and acted a little bit when she was a child, like 13, 14, back in the 80s. She kind of did her thing. And then in 2010, Lisa premiered on the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, where she became a household name. And then, of course, went on to be the executive producer in the spinoff of Vanderpump Rules. So we know how that is, which it's going to be a living legacy of things, hopefully, that she did start in the reality TV world. Now, we know with Lisa, she's had some hits and misses. Vanderpump Villa, she had that Overserved show, which I thought was super cute, where celebrities would come over and have cocktails with her, and I felt like she really did get drunk with them. I really liked that show. She has the Vanderpump Dogs Foundation. I mean, she's obviously an animal lover. She gave us Jiggy, Diamonds and Rosé. I mean, this woman is a marketing genius. She is an aesthetics genius. I've told my husband several times I want to have a Villa Rosa style home. I just think that she just is like an influencer. She's very influential. The things that she likes, her style, her aesthetic, her taste, it's all just part of the Lisa Vanderpump world. And I'm obsessed with all of it. I love going to her cocktail bars. I love just seeing like what she's going to do next. She still is opening bars and restaurants. She's somebody who's never coasted off of her success that she has now. I mean, I'm sure her lifestyle costs a lot. They have to constantly be doing things and moving and shaking. She's just a smart businesswoman. She's somebody who can hold her own in a room of men. She's not intimidating to the point of being like having that, like, she doesn't over girl boss where she becomes like Martha Stewart. Where people have all these stories of like her being like an awful person, you know, like you don't really get too many stories of that like her. Like, I think that she does just cut to the chase. Is she a little misogynistic and maybe where she favors the boys a little bit? I will for sure say that. But I think that she can also do that with, you know, maybe not to quite the extreme, but I think that she's given Sheena a lot of chances. She's always been willing to sit down with Stassi and hear her out. Like, it's not like it's always just about the men. So I just have to say, like, I think her longstanding relationship with Ken and how she's always been like, oh yeah, we fuck like once a year. Like, she's not up there being like, oh yeah, and I keep it sexy for my man. Like, I hate housewives like Larsa Pippen who are like, yeah, I have sex with my man 4 times a day. Like, one of the things that will make me not like a housewife is somebody who portrays unrealistic standards of what it is like to be a mother or a wife. And like that trad wife idea of like, oh, like I can do it all. And I don't like women like that because I think that is a detriment to other women and again, like puts down other women. So I think that there's just something about Lisa that like she actually does empower women, believe it or not. So she's number 3 on my most influential list. I mean, she did Beverly Hills where she literally fainted on purpose and faked fainting. I mean, these are the things that I would do. Like if I was like, I want to get off Dancing with the Stars, I would do that. I'm sick. I can't do it anymore. Like she was like, I'm rich enough to be doing this. Like, I don't need to do this. So yeah, she's just an incredible person. I like love her love of Vegas. Like, you know, I love Vegas. Like, these are just things that I have in common that I just, you know, I love me some LVP. So she's number 3 on my list. So kind of moving through the timeline of these seasons. We're up into season 5. We've got Lisa, Eileen, then season 6 again, Erika comes in, and Erika was another person that LVP, I think, was really tickled by, right? Like, she thought Erika was just like, what an enigma. Like, this girl is Jersey to the core. Like, you can take the girl out of Jersey, but you cannot take the Jersey out of the girl. And Erika Jayne is Jerseylicious. And I think that she had the money and the reputation and the stature of somebody who was in Beverly Hills. And with Tom, he was, you know, at the peak of his game back then when she joined the show. So I think that when she first came in, like, there was definitely a lot. Like, I loved Erika. There was a lot there. And that's why she is number 2 on my most insane, loved, crazy, influential housewives of Beverly Hills. I'm not calling this like my favorite. These aren't my favorites because, like I said, they're not like my favorite people. They're just like my favorite housewives. So that made me Erika in 2015. So now by 2015, I had been watching this show for how long? I was actually So at this time, Wet Seal, I think, had been closed. I had left the mall. I had started a career in the medical field, working in some different doctor's offices and managing there. Went from managing retail to managing doctor's offices. And I was doing pretty good in 2015. I mean, not like emotionally, but I was becoming an adult. I was like 27. I was 27 when this was airing. And so Erika comes onto the show, and that was a really interesting season too. That was really just us getting to know Erika. Camille was still around. Adrienne would still pop in here and there, even though she wasn't technically on the show anymore. I don't remember like too much going on that season, except for I think that this was mostly the Lisa Rinna Munchausen season. So that was a lot of the conversation that season, which Yolanda did end up leaving after that season. So Munchausen, all that stuff is going on. I remember Kyle too was like getting caught up in the crossfire of that. Oh my gosh, that was a crazy season. So then that brings us pretty much to, yes. Okay. So that pretty much brings us to season 7. So we have, when Erika Jayne came on, that was just, come look at my chapel, come meet Tom, this and that. Like we weren't even getting too much like Erika Jayne yet. Like it was really just the introduction to her coming on and getting to know the girls. But then season 7 is when things really kicked off, because that's when we got to know Dorit. So Dorit comes in and she kind of has this little feud with Erika and PK, because Erika, this is Pantygate. And when Pantygate happened, when whether or not Erika was wearing underwear, and did PK see the Pikachu? And this was a really quintessential housewife season, because it really just showed how like gossip and how the husbands getting involved can create a different dynamic, and how it just is really like the core of Housewives is just them reacting to each other and things that happen in real life. Like you can't script Erika not wearing underwear and then PK like getting a shot of the Pikachu. Like that was something that genuinely happened authentically and then created drama, because Dorit was then offended that a girl would be around her man without that. And remember, this is Dorit's first season and she's coming on like I think she was very protective of PK at the time, because remember he had been, married before and had kids, and Dorit was the second wife. And, there was just a lot, I think, of insecurity in Dorit when she first came on the show. So, which made her a good housewife. So she really came on and kind of mixed things up, but then it gave Erika the storyline, and that really empowered Erika to lean into the Erika Jayne. And yes, I don't wear underwear. And yes, next season I'm going to wear pasties because I'm going to be so scared. And then the fashion, and Dorit and Erika playing off of each other, one-upping with the fashion and their little frenemy feud, and like the husbands, and just everything that really brought in that season really changed Housewives for me, and became, that's what kind of really put the Beverly Hills like on my radar. Like all of the seasons up until when Dorit and Erika were there were just like, okay, like that's when things just like elevated to me. And maybe I was just like getting older and finding like, because it is interesting to think that I was so young when I started watching, like 19 or 20. So now I'm 27 watching Housewives now, just 7 years of me having this idea that like, okay, when I get older, like this is what women are going to be like. It really did make me think like, okay, what kind of woman do I want to be like when I'm older? Like which one of these housewives do I want to emulate my life after and kind of build towards? And so that's when some of these characters started coming up that I was like, okay, now I'm starting to get like attached to these people and want to, like I never wanted to be like Camille Grammer. She seems so miserable. Taylor, like even Kyle and Kim, I was like, no. But we're starting to get into some of these other characters where I'm like, okay, I kind of like love them and like want to be like them. Like I was saying with Yolanda, like I want to live in a house like that. I want to have these great like loves or whatever. Like even Yolanda was thinking like, or have these children that turn out to be supermodels. Or with Brandy, her authenticity and her willingness to own who she is. And these are the reasons what made me love her. And then of course with LVP, the over the top luxury and the aesthetic and the success in her businesses and the long-lasting marriage that was realistic. Like these kinds of things, like these were making these housewives. I was like, wow, these are the people that like I want to be like. Crazy. Like it really started to get like deep for me around here. Now, Erika, of course, she goes on. Oh no, and I'm already messing up my little countdown here. So in typical Amanda fashion, I'm seeing now in my list that I had originally put Erika as my number 2, but then I moved her to my number 1 with Dorit. But that's okay. Dorit and Erika, we're just going to tie them for 1 and 2 because like I said, they're almost like a power duo that like need each other to survive. And I think that they knew when they came onto the show because again, they were kind of coming off this Joyce failed, right? They tried to bring Carlton on. She failed. Adrian had quit the show. Camille was the most hated. Taylor had to leave for her mental health. Kim's basically in rehab. Like they needed these affluent, pretty, fashion giving housewives that were going to come with the shade, that were going to come with the confessionals, that were going to come with this like cutthroat housewifing side to them. So I think that was like an interesting part of it, truly. So Erika and Dorit are really my number 1 and number 2. So let's get into Dorit then. So Dorit joins the cast in 2016. She technically came on, I think, as Rinna's friend. But as we know, the friends and all this stuff, they just kind of flow in and out. But Dorit comes on, and like I said, her first season is a lot about going up against Erika and the Pikachu of it all. And then, that was season 7 when Dorit came on. And then season 8 is when Teddy joined. Camille was still in the mix, fighting with Teddy a lot. And this was still when, Eileen was in the show. And I'm trying to remember, like, I really want to know, like, what else happened in the 8th season of Beverly Hills because I don't remember too much of Teddy's first season. But let's see if we can get, like, a little bit of information here because I think Teddy just fought with Camille a lot. Yes. And Teddy would also go on to fight with Dorit about when Dorit was late, when they had their sit down. I mean, this was all just kind of like petty stuff that was going on. They tried to do the gag gift where they were like getting Erika panties and then Erika gave Dorit the ball gag in return. So this was kind of just like petty housewifery. It wasn't anything huge that happened in season 8. But then season 9 was one for the books. This was Puppygate. This was Lucy Apple Juice, which will go on to live in infamy, I think, for the rest of Housewives. Because what happened in season 9 was they realized in season 8, like just how I was just saying, how not a lot happened, right? They were giving funny gifts and they were trying to start little frenemy fights like, oh, you bought me on, like, they were kind of just doing little like quips, but they weren't getting deep. And so what happened after season 8 was, I think, LVP and a lot of these people that were like, oh shit, like we're not really bringing much to the table here. Maybe we should come up with something for season 9, just like with Roni, with the prank with Rebecca Minkoff being pregnant. They were like, we got to come up with something here to bring on. And this is where I have to fault my girl LVP. She started self-producing and she was like, I am going to bring a story on camera this season by way of, an off character named John Blizzard and John Sessa that worked at Vanderpump Dogs. And what happened really was a real thing that did happen off camera where Dorit had adopted a dog from Vanderpump Dogs. Things did not go well with this dog. And in turn, the dog had to be rehomed. And I know that we are all so sick of talking about Puppygate. But again, remember, this is after Pantygate. So this was them coming off the idea that they had to kind of do this. They had to have this type of show. They had to have something going on manufactured for them to all come on screen and talk about. And LVP was like, okay, I'm fucking taking this show by the bull, taking this bull by the horns. And I am going to bring the storyline onto camera. So it wasn't necessarily a fake storyline. It was just the fact that it was very clear And it was also clear in the fact that she used Teddy, because since Teddy had been feuding with Dorit the season before, remember the whole thing about Dorit being late to meet the accountability coach and Teddy, going on and on about it. So now this is her to get her revenge, right? LVP is like, okay, Teddy, I'm going to have you bring this up on camera and we're going to get Dorit back. And I think Dorit too was also, they were basically, everybody was kind of against Dorit. Like people didn't really like Dorit her first season. I think because she had gone up against Erika, and the other girls did like Erika at the time. And it was this Fox Force 5 thing and the dream team and, all this stuff. There were alliances. So I think that as a new girl, they just didn't like her. They wanted her out and they were going to do their best to get her out. And what happens is they try to defeat my Dorit. Now, do I agree with the way that the dog was rehomed? No, but I actually do not think that there is any way that she would ever do something malicious to an animal. I think that is so sinister and that is so fucked up for people to even try to say. She clearly tried to avoid Lisa knowing. That's the thing. She didn't want Lisa to know that she rehomed the dog, which I guess she just figured she'd be able to just fake it for a while, or, I don't know how long she was going to be able to pretend, or maybe she figured she'll tell her later when she sees how good it's going. Unfortunately though, when Dorit gave up the dog, it went into the wrong hands. And because the dog was chipped and microchipped, it ended up back at the shelter. So that's when they had John Blizzard bring the dog down the stairs. Teddy pretends to go, oh my God, is that Dorit's dog? Why is it back here? And that's all of the fakeness of it, was the idea that they were supposed to just apparently this had happened weeks prior, and then bringing it up on camera really was irrelevant. And obviously they're just trying to make Dorit look bad. So then all of season 9 is about exposing the fact that Lisa did this on purpose. And that she used Teddy, and that she also used the media by way of Radar Online to put stories into the press to back up this stuff. And this is where things really became wow, Housewives is a new world now, because these women do have so much power and influence after being on TV for 9 seasons. Like we said, Lisa Vanderpump's been on for 9 seasons. She's very well known. If she wants something out there, she's going to get it out there. And this is when I think you start to realize your power. And I think this is what Teresa also learned on Jersey. I have so much power now. People are going to listen to me and do what I say, and they're going to follow me. So as long as I can put this out there, it's going to catch fire and it's going to take off and it's going to basically become truth. And because if it's out there, then it's true. And if it's being repeated, then they can bring it up because they didn't actually say it. It's out there, even though they were the ones that put it out there. It's all part of it. Being able to say, oh, well, I didn't expose that because it was already in People magazine, but you were the one that called People magazine and put it in there. This was a huge problem and a detriment to Housewives, I think, as a franchise, to the whole idea that we weren't faking storylines, that this is authentic TV, that it's not overproduced. It just did a really bad thing to Housewives. So everyone was really mad at Lisa. Lisa refused to film. She never came back. She never came to the reunion that year. And everybody got to basically use her as a punching bag that season. And if she would have just showed up, owned it, if Lisa would have just said, I didn't put the story out, but I definitely told people and talked shit, and one of my employees did. Or, because I think that she really does maintain the fact that she didn't call Radar Online and that John Blizzard did, and that's fine, but you have to admit, okay, I gave the information to John, then he did it. The lie detector test, the whole thing was so cringy. I'm still, like I said, because of her 8 seasons prior, gonna keep her as my number 3 on my list. Because still to this day, she does influence me in my life every day, and I love her. But damn, she really fumbled that, because she got too lost in the sauce of creating and controlling the narrative. I think that she was petrified at the idea that somebody would come up with something against her and maybe her restaurant, or maybe her, something. So, and for whatever reason, they were just really mad at Dorit and really wanted her off the show. So the fact that they were really trying to come for her like this is ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, that kind of just brought us down to Dorit. Now let's just talk a little bit more about why I love Dorit. So Dorit is a very polarizing character. People, again, really love her or hate her. Dorit does not have a Wikipedia page, so I can't click on her to tell you any random facts about her, but I know she grew up in Connecticut. I know that she went to college and lived abroad in Israel and Italy, and that's why she has all these crazy accents. She moved back. I think she was living in London, met PK. They moved to Beverly Hills, and they had Phoenix and Jagger. And I just love Dorit as a character because I think a combination of her being again, she is a real housewife. And I love the Real Housewives. When I say that, I'm talking about she's married. Her main thing in life every day when she wakes up is being a wife and a mother. And that's what makes a real housewife to me. If you wake up every day and your first thing is to, I don't know, I'm trying to give an example of somebody who's like not a good housewife. I don't know. I mean, it's really hard because I think everybody brings like their own type of style to it, but I'm really trying to think of somebody like, I would almost argue like Adriana from Miami is kind of an example of somebody who you're not really dating on the show too much. You're kind of just being like a single, messy white female. I mean, I know she's not white, but I'm going for single white female, single white, messy female. Like, I don't really think those are good housewives. Like Brynn is a perfect example. Like, I'm just going to come on, lie, and stir shit up so that I'm in the mix and that there's drama. And I hate housewives like that. That's why people did not like Lisa Rinna, even though I would argue she still had housewife qualities. She's still a real, every day wakes up and every day is a real housewife in her with or without cameras. That's what makes a real housewife. If they're living their life like this every day, as a real housewife with or without the cameras. So, like, I would say Camille is another. I mean, I've already really bashed her a lot, but she's another example of this. She is very boring off camera. She's boring. She lunches and shops and just like, she's not like somebody who comes on and she's never in like interesting things. The only time she is relevant is when she's talking about other people. If your storyline is just other housewives, if your storyline is just talking shit, if your storyline is just bone collecting, you are not a good real housewife. Therefore, you should not be one of these characters. You have to have the dynamics of having your own stuff going on and talking about what the other ladies are doing. So I think that's my biggest takeaway from this episode with you guys, is that we kind of got to the makings of what is a good housewife and what isn't a good housewife. Now let's kind of just go through the rest of Beverly Hills here and kind of just get caught up to where we are today. We are in season 8 or season 9, Puppygate happens, Vanderpump exits, and then season 10 is when we get Garcelle, which she's on my list of least favorite housewives. Again, somebody who only talks about what other people are doing and never has her own storyline. I don't like Garcelle. We have Sutton that joins. Sutton joins as a friend the first season. And then remember how people were so excited when she got her diamond in season 10 or in season 11. Sorry. So she was a friend of season 10. Season 11, she got her diamond. Crystal, again, another character who only talks about what other people are doing, never talks about what we got into a bad thing here. After LVP left, we got into a bad cycle of just housewives coming on that were just like, ugh, trying too hard. Diana Jenkins, that friend of Sheree Zampino. There were some bad seasons that kind of happened there from like 9, 10, 11, 12. I didn't love those seasons, but then everything popped off with Erika. Now, again, that's why Erika deserves to be on my list. She didn't quit the show. She definitely did play the victim, but not so annoyingly to where she was never able to get it together again. Like, she played the victim, but then finally was like, okay, I'm going to toughen up and come back and punt these bitches out. So she has the fight left in her. She had the re-showing of Erika Jayne going back on tour. I watched the Mikey Mendon's 2-episode special of Erika Jayne Takes Vegas. I just think that she's interesting and has a lot to give as far as content. So that's why I kind of like love these people. Diana Jenkins leaves. And then we get to season 13. And that's when we have Anne Marie again. Yikes. She was out after one season. And then we didn't talk much about Denise. Denise is a perfect recurring guest / friend / housewife that kind of like circles back and out every season. Her bisexual storyline with Brandi Glanville, I'm not kidding. Like, that was compelling TV. I know that like outing and everything like that now things have changed, but Brandi wasn't out bisexual and so was Denise. I think that the fact that Denise wasn't willing, like Denise's inability to cover up the truth in that and her like fail and flop, that was a really good season. I know that like maybe the gay baiting or it might be triggering to some with the, outing and stuff, but it was, remember when Kyle was like, she had freaking Brandi come over. Oh my God. Remember? Like things got messy. Like, okay, I have to give it to Kyle. Kyle will never be on my list. I just don't like her off camera. So that's why you can't like somebody, you can't be on my list if I don't like you on camera and off camera a little bit. I don't like her off camera at all. But I do think that her willingness to like talk about other people's shit and never her own is kind of iconic. Like she is the queen of deflection. She is deflection. So this year we're going to get, and by the way, Crystal being fired again. I always bring this up like every time I record. I just could not stand her. I thought she was so pretentious, so boring, and so judgy. I hated the way that she would say bitch and always be like, bitch. Like I say a bitch here and there too, lovingly, like little, hey bitch. But she just was always like, I don't like her. I just don't like the way that she like operates. I love her husband, Rob Minkoff. Oh yeah, love him. If anything problematic ever comes out about him, I'll be very disappointed. But so yeah, Crystal just, I'm so happy she's gone. But now we're getting Bozoma St. John. She is our new housewife in season 14 that we will be meeting tonight. She is an American business person, a marketing executive who was the CMO for Netflix for 17 months. So I think it's really funny to be like, okay, I worked there for a year. I mean, cool. But I guess that is kind of a big deal. She was also at Uber. She worked for Apple Music and Beats, Pepsi. So obviously she's a marketing genius. The reason why I'm so excited to kind of get to know her, she's also from Connecticut and she's going to be coming in as a friend of Dorit. So Dorit being one of my top housewives. I'm excited to kind of see what Dorit sees in her and what they have in common. And I'm excited to see how she sticks up for Dorit, because coming into here, you would think that she would love to cling to a Kyle Richards and a Kim Richards because of their, movie and stature and Beverly Hills and stuff. So I'm really interested to see what she's going to do for the Real Housewives platform. And yeah, so that's kind of my little Beverly Hills rant. Thanks to you guys for joining me for this non-camera episode. And I hope that you enjoyed it. I wanted just to hop on the mic today. I had some time and just some energy to burn. So again, shout out to Yolanda, Brandi, Lisa Vanderpump, Dorit Kemsley, and Erika Jayne Girardi for being my top 5 favorite Real Housewives of Beverly Hills of all time. And I can't wait to check in with you guys later this week for my top 5 countdown. So I will still be doing my top 5 most talked about reality TV moments this weekend. I'll have an episode coming on either Thursday or Friday, and we'll be talking about that. So, all right, I'll let you guys go for the day. Hope you all enjoy the episode tonight and have a great rest of your week. Ciao, Bellas.